Hello, and thank you for joining me for the second episode of the Let's Get Mental podcast. Today is a doozy. I fumble my way through my life story, struggling to speak every bit of the way, but if you can make it through, it's going to be a good one, I promise. Today, we're going to go over some childhood trauma and some personal stories of mine. These stories do get quite graphic and quite real, and so if you are conservative side and get uncomfortable from people's personal stories, I'm sorry, but this is not the episode for you. So I do want to warn you before you go forward. I also stutter a lot during this podcast. Again, I apologize. This is still new for me. But I do thank you for all the support and love. So, um, with that, I want to thank you one more time and let's get into it. I don't have to do homework or worry about anything on fall break. So, right now, I feel very accomplished. I didn't feel very accomplished this morning when I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't even want to make coffee, if I'm being honest. But that's how I'm feeling today. Right as I'm recording this, I feel very happy and accomplished. Overall, though, I feel very content and happy with my life. Um, that doesn't mean that I haven't had my fair share of days where I just wanted to fucking blow my head off, you know, and that's being honest. It's a daily struggle, I would say. It's a daily struggle. But overall, that's what today's episode is going to be all about. It's going to be about how I am, how I have gotten here, to be able to talk about my personal trauma and my personal issues so openly, and and why I created this podcast and why I want to be able to create a space for individuals who are struggling and who need that safe space to be vulnerable. And so, with that, I want to start off with vulnerability and my my personal experience with being vulnerable. Okay, I was never a vulnerable. I never felt as if I could be vulnerable because of the stigma of being a male or being a man. You know, my dad, who is a very strong man, he left home when he was 15, 16 years old, and he joined the oil fields. And he did the oil fields when he was very young. That's very hard and extreme labor, very arduous labor. And he was doing that when he was 16, 17 years old. That's crazy compared to me when I was 16, 17 years old. I mean, 16 years old, you know, I was a junior in high school, going to college or going to high school. Like, and my dad, when he was 16, 17, was working and working his ass hard. So there's a different dynamic between my dad and me. And so he raised me to be a man because that's how he was raised. You know, he didn't show emotion. I didn't show emotion. Don't be vulnerable and don't be emotional. If you cry alone. You cry where someone can't hear you. And if you grew up that way, and whether you're a male or female, if you grew up that way, uh, that's not that's not healthy. First off, if I have to tell you that, then you know, I mean, I guess we're in the right place, but that's not healthy. Being vulnerable, we have to be vulnerable. We have to. We can't braze the storm forever. You know, sooner or later the well's going to dry up. I forgot who told me a while ago, but they said their resistance was like your resistance is a well, right? And you can only bring a bucket up so much. You can only bring so much water before the well dries up. So you can only be so resilient before you have to be vulnerable a few times. You have to be able to express emotion, and that is what vulnerability is. And that is something I didn't do growing up. I didn't really talk about my emotions because I felt scared. I felt like vulnerable. Like why would I talk about my feelings? First off, if you have feelings, if I have feelings and I'm a man, I'm gay. You know, that's gay. Like don't talk to me about your feelings. Like that's how I thought. That's how I grew up. That's how I thought as a man. And obviously that's not okay. But that's my introduction, I would say, into that's my introduction to you, how I process my feelings at a young age. So that maybe that'll set some groundwork for you guys to really know. Um, that's ground zero. That's what I'm working with: immaturity and instability at a young age. And so that made me feel as if I can only be like funny and I can only be lighthearted. So I started hiding my feelings behind smile and behind jokes and behind being a goofball. You know, if you're listening to this and think, "Oh, I did that." Well, let me tell you, that means you're fucked up too, there, bud. You know, because hiding your feelings behind a joke, that's like number one. Like that might be a little red flag there, guy. You can't fucking have a conversation about your feelings without at the end saying, "Hi, I'm just kidding, bro. I'm just kidding. Fucking, I'm joking, bro. Don't take me serious." Well, guess what? I am gonna take you serious. Just like you should take your own feelings serious. So I that's how I would say I started out coping with stuff that would hurt my feelings. I would just make jokes about it. Like growing up, I was very subconscious about my chest, right? My chest, it sticks out, so the bone kind of sticks out of the skin. And so I was very subconscious about that. I was very scared to take my shirt off in at pools, or I was scared to um taking my shirt off. I never enjoyed that. And it only got progressively worse. And so I would make a joke about it. You know, I would say, you know, it's my alien popping out of my chest. You know, like the alien, like the, you know, all that. That sounded more like a pig, but the alien popping out of my chest. So that's how I would cope with something. I've been called ugly all my life. You know, because maybe I am ugly and I just don't know. But in the Marine Corps, I was told that I was probably one of the ugliest Marines have seen. So, but again, I would just make jokes about it. You know, I'd make jokes about how ugly I was. Like, yeah, I am the Hunchback of Notre Dame. You know, I am. You know, I am the Elephant Man, or you know, the gap between my teeth. You know, maybe I should introduce my two front teeth before I before something. You know, or my smile looks like a white picket fence that got a car driven through it. So, I mean, all the jokes, all these self-deprecating jokes and these harsh jokes against myself. That's it's the way I cope. It's the way I get through my feelings, right? And so, growing up, I always make jokes about it. I would always be the goofball. If someone was sad, my first instinct was, well, let me try and make them happy, and then that would get me happy. And I'm like, oh shit, I'm like I kind of like that feeling. And so I would start doing that, you know. Um, and I kind of got this like warm, fuzzy feeling, and I'm like, wow, that made me feel good. Oh, she's crying. Oh, let me go make her laugh. Oh, wow, it would make me feel something, and so that's what I would always do. I would always focus on other people. I would always make sure that other people's feelings were heard by me because I felt as if I couldn't express my own feelings. Um, And so that is when I would say I started to really pour myself into others. And by that, I mean, I would care for someone so much, or I would be friends with someone and dedicate myself to them as their friend. So I would pour myself so much into these friendships that it felt creepy, you know, like like I mean, it was bad. I wanted to be, I wanted to have that connection. I wanted to have that feeling like as if, hey, you can tell me anything. I could tell you something. I could tell you something about me, and I know you wouldn't judge me, and you would, vice versa. And that got me hurt a few times, and that got me um, that and I hurt some people too as well. And so that's like where I would say I that's where I would probably pinpoint like where the most problems began is when I started caring about people more than myself, caring for others' feelings way more than myself, regardless of how I feel or how I am doing. I put people's feelings and people's, I would say, expectations. I guess not really. That's a bad word. Um, but I would put their issues first and ignore mine. You know, people would ask me how your day is. All right. How was your day? Oh, really? Oh, awesome. And then, I would just tear into their day rather than talk about me. So I would say that began probably elementary school. I do remember uh, this girl like tripped and she was crying. And I was like, oh, it's okay. Look, like, watch this. And I tripped and I like fucked up my knee and she started laughing. And I was like, see, haha. And so I like hurt myself to make her feel better. That's what I did as a sixth grader. Uh, I remember a sixth grader came up to me and they were telling me, my mom's getting a divorce and my parents are divorced. And so I told them, hey, that's okay. If you need to talk to me, talk to me. Um, that was told by me by a teacher that I used to know, or a teacher that was one of my teachers in sixth grade. Um, she told me about that story, and she said, "You did that," and I didn't know, obviously, because I don't remember that. That's sixth grade when you're 12. So she told me, I knew you were special because you listened to your friends and you were giving advice, and I was just, it was super awesome to hear that I at least I was doing it for someone if I wasn't doing it for myself. Um, and so I would say that that probably began in the sixth grade was like the whole pour myself into people and friendships and all that. But that doesn't mean don't get it twisted because when it came to like girlfriends and relationships, your boy had his issues. Okay, and by issues I mean I couldn't really stay in a relationship from like sixth grade to like probably junior senior year of high school. And I know what you're thinking. Sixth grade, fucking who was dating in sixth grade? Yeah, I know. I was dating very early and sexually active early. Um, and that is also something that I did research about and something that comes from trauma. I would always try and date someone. I would always try and be with someone, but I would never commit myself 100%. Or I would text another girl, or I would cheat on my girlfriend to make sure that they would always break up with me. So that way I always felt terrible. I always had an excuse, right? That circles back to that whole I want to feel bad about myself. I want to feel sad. And so I put myself in these situations and I wouldn't blame anyone but myself. Obviously, it's my fault. Um, Regardless, no person deserves that type of treatment from anyone. And again, that's because I didn't know how to cope and I didn't know how to get through anything. I was a scared, emotional little boy on the inside who wanted to cry all the time, who wanted to just tell someone, please just listen to me. Just sit down and listen to me, and it's, but I didn't. I never did. I never took the steps ever. And that's one of the main reasons why I wanted to create a podcast. I wanted to create some place, something for people that maybe they think like me, or maybe they still are there, where they can't process themselves and they can't find a way out. I hope to God that this reaches you if you're like that, because I'm here to tell you that it's okay. It is. You are not a monster. You are not a piece of shit. You deserve to be alive. I deserve to be alive. Just because you made a mistake doesn't mean you're a horrible individual. Now, if you continuously choose to harm others and you continuously choose to be a harmful individual, then yeah, maybe you are a piece of shit. But if you made one mistake and you continuously hold that mistake above your head and you say, I am no good because of this mistake, that's that's like the opposite of a bachelor's degree, right? You have a bachelor's degree, I have a bachelor's degree, and I wanna put it on my wall. Oh, you're gonna have a piece of shit degree? Yeah, this is my piece of shit degree. I cheated on my girlfriend when I was in 8th grade. I'm a piece of shit for life. I'm 45 years old and I still think I'm a piece of shit. Like, come on. Really? Grow up. Yeah, you maybe were a piece of shit, but if you could grow up, that's the difference between men and boys, between a woman and a girl. They grow up. You can't go through life always saying, woe is me. Grow up, take some accountability, and get yourself moving. There's no other way to do it but to do it. So, again, another tangent. My apologies. Um, so I was, trying my best to figure out how to cope and how to get through these issues that I felt, um, commitment issues and all that. And so I would say nothing really changed from 6th grade to 12th grade. Okay. Um, I had several relationships, not successful relationships, but several relationships in high school. Um, and this is the time where I'm going to warn you again. This is quite graphic because this is about where my life really takes a turn. And this is one of those moments in the story where you see it happen and you say, Jesus, what is going to happen after this? Um, and I will not name names. Uh, the only thing I will tell you is this: this is my story. I have the power to share it. So that way, those who think they cannot share or who they lost their power, I am here for you to motivate us to take that step. And so I was a freshman in high school, and this older girl, she was a TA, and I was not doing well in class. I need to play football. I need to get my grades up. Like, is there anything I could do? And the teacher, the actual teacher, I'm having this conversation with the teacher, and she said, "Yeah, yeah, yeah. Hook up with the TA, and not literally hook up, but hook up with the TA, and she'll tutor you." So she said, "Yeah, of course, I could tutor you." And so we came up with a plan or whatever, and she said, "Come over and tutor. Come over, and I will help you with whatever you need." And I went over, and I was again a freshman in high school, so I don't. I mean, I'm not even thinking about girls. I'm not thinking about sex. I'm not thinking about anything. I am a little boy, again, with issues. And so, an issue saying no. And so I get there and she tells me, we're going to have sex. And I said, no, we're not. That's the first thing I said. I said, nope. I said, that not going to happen. And she said, I'll never forget this. She said, if you don't have sex with me, I will tell people, I will tell everyone that you raped me. And I froze. It's like the world stopped. You know, all I know at the time is that rape meant jail time. That word, simply even that word, whispered with my name, I didn't. I just so many things flashed through my head, and I pleaded with her. I told her I didn't want to have sex. I didn't want to do anything, and I was scared. I was very scared. I blacked out. All I remember was walking back to school and getting picked up, and then never telling anyone ever. Um, I eventually later, told my parents and my wife and all that. But that was, I would say, that is when everything changed. 14 years old, and I lost my virginity. Um, uh, I was deeply traumatized, um, and I never thought that I could talk about it to anyone or talk to anyone because I'm a man. How could I have let this happen? You know, how could I have let a woman take advantage of me? I'm a man, and so it was like all those combinations of not being vulnerable, my masculinity, my inability to say no, or a people pleaser. It just all of it just came crashing down when I was 14 years old. What do you do? What do you do as a 14-year-old kid? I was not equipped and handled. I was not equipped to cope through that. But god damn it, did I fucking survive. I fucking survived, and I'm here now. And I'm here to tell you that it was hard, very difficult, you know? And what, hindsight's 2020. I've seen those self-defense videos. I should have grabbed and twisted. I should have grabbed her yiddies and fucking grabbed and twisted. That's what they teach you in self-defense class. Bam, right in the cooter. But bam, right in the cooter. That's really what I should have done. Um, fucking try it on me now. I'll fucking palm heel strike straight to your nose. Bam. Anyways, sorry. There goes that comedy. There goes that comedy trying to cover up my trauma. Um, and so after that, I really didn't know what to do. Um, and so I did what any little boy would do. I bottled it up and I buried it deep down and I never touched it. High school was a really tough time for me, really tough time. Um, I never felt comfortable in my own body. I'm not saying like in a uh like gender way. I just literally felt as if like I am just too ugly for this world. I am simply just gross, and like people like struggle to look at me. That's the type of confidence that I had. Um and I hit it with a smile. I hit it with a charismatic big cheese and smile, jokes, a great personality if I do say so myself. because I was hurting. And the more I hurt, the more I covered it up. And so 16, 17 came around, 17 years old. I signed my life into the Marine Corps. I thought about it. I said, you know what? If I could just die in the Marine Corps, I would be happy. Uh, because I thought about it. I said, a battlefield death, little did I know, but a battlefield death, that would be awesome. That's what I was thinking of when I was 17. I wanted to go and just die, go and serve my country and die. Um, and so 17, 18 years old, I left home and I really had to push all that down and push that away from me. And so in the Marine Corps, I grew up in the Marine Corps. Emotionally speaking, I grew up in the Marine Corps. Maturity wise, from 17-year-old to 23 years old, I was in the Marine Corps. Those times, that time in my life, that 5 years of my life, I coped by being a dick and being an asshole. I was a jerk because I had my own issues. But if I saw emotion and I saw that as weakness. I'd be disgusted. I'd be like, really, dude, why are you crying? Quit crying. Like, man, like, don't be a pussy. I was the guy that would make fun of people crying. I was the guy that would say, you crying is a weakness. Get it out of my sight. Get it away from me. And is that sad? It's sad when I look at it now. If someone told me that right now, I'd punch them right in the face. That's not how you speak to someone when they're feelings, when they're hurting. But that's the way I did. That's the way I was in the Marine Corps. I was a savage. I didn't care. If you were weak, I didn't like you. And that's just how it was. And then that's how I was for 5 years. I was a completely different person in the Marine Corps. And then I came home, and boy, was that a culture shock. I was out of the Marine Corps. I didn't even know how to hold a conversation with someone. I couldn't look at civilians because they just disgusted me. And I was like, why do I feel this anger inside me? It's like this fire, it boils my blood. Like, why are you so, why are these civilians so, bleh, like, why am I so pissed? And I realized, wait a minute, is is everyone the issue, or am I? Am I the issue? And then I realized, yes, I am. And I started looking at just me in general. Like, do I have a reason to be upset? Do I have a real reason to be mad at the world? No, I'm alive. I ain't in the dirt. So yeah, I have a reason to be alive. I don't have a reason to be upset. I choose to be happy. I choose to go and get up and get after it every day because I'm doing that for my friends who aren't here. And I am doing that for those who think that they don't belong. Well, I'm here to tell you that you fucking do. You fucking belong here. You have to make it. We have to be better. If we are to succeed, we have to be better. Arnold Schwarzenegger said it once, you cannot climb the ladder of success with your hands in your pockets. I remember one day, it was 6 months after the Marine Corps. And again, it's going to get really real. But after the Marine Corps, all it took was 6 months. And I was in my closet crying, 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 crying. And my pistol was in my hand. And I was there. That pit, I was there. I was ready. I made amends. I said, if I'm going to hell, I'm taking myself and I'm gonna fucking end it. I'm tired. I'm tired of just not feeling like I belong. I'm tired of it. And then I tears in my eyes, and I just remember, wait a minute, who's gonna find me? My wife. That's who's gonna find me. I gotta pick her up in the morning. She's at work. I'm like, dude, if you fucking kill yourself, your wife is gonna bring you back and she's gonna beat the living shit out of you. And then I thought about it. My family. I got my family. I have my boys. And by not sons, but my boys from the Marine Corps, my veteran friends. Last thing they want to do is write on my wall, say, oh, it's another one. Last thing my buddies want to do is put another friend in the ground. And so I made that first choice. I reached out. I won't say who I reached out to, but you know who it is. You know who you are. I remember I just told him, I said, I'm struggling, man. Help me, please. And he said, you have to forgive yourself. You have to stop living this lie that you're a horrible individual. You have to stop. And so I for the first time in my life, I think I really forgave myself. That's it. You have to go there in that pit. You have to go there in that darkness, and you have to make the journey, and you have to come back, and you are stronger for it. And so I started really going through my own emotional baggage, my own trauma. And I started young, I started asking my parents, hey guys, how long, was I always a kid? Like, was I cry? Did I cry a lot? Was I not emotional? And and one day they told me, they told me about how I felt, when they would leave, they were always like, have to tell me, we're coming back, and I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And so it was the more I found out about myself and the more I found out, I just realized, that yeah, you have these thorns in you, so to speak, right? You have to get those thorns out. It's gonna hurt, yeah, but you're gonna feel better afterwards. So, and here's the best thing that I would say is that I was like a broken glass bottle, right? A bunch of sharp ass pieces that wanted to hurt everybody, but I just needed a little glue, a little love, and a lot of time. And now I'm a semi-functional bottle. I'm a semi-functional human being. I was in the Marine Corps infantry, so my brain's a little broken. Got to be a little crazy, but crazy is better than dead, and that is the truth. Whatever is left after you pick up the pieces, that's what you have to work with. And I was stuck in the rut for a long time, until I hit that rock bottom, and until I felt as if I couldn't go anywhere but down. So after I faced my demons, and after I really looked inward, I uh I found a new um I found a new purpose in myself and in my life. I made a promise I'll always be kind-hearted to those who need it, and always put my feelings first before others. And I made that decision on my own. So what is the point of me telling you all this? And what's the point of me telling you about my own personal trauma, my own personal story? And that's to break down the barriers. That's to build this trust, to show you that um, it's people go through things, and we may not always express to each other that we're hurting, but you never know what that person next to you or across from you is going through. Um, It's people are selfish. We're just selfish, and we think about our own personal lives. We don't think about others around us. We forget that there's other people in this world. Or maybe you aren't, and you all are loving since the day you came out of the womb, and you always loved people, but you always knew how to love yourself as well. If that's you, then more power to you. But that's not all of us. Some of us have to really work hard every day. And I wanted to share with you all my own story, um, because I spent a lot of years not speaking and not telling people about my feelings. And no more. I will do that. I will no longer ignore what I feel. That doesn't make me a prima donna, and I'm not going to go around and shove my trauma in your face and tell you to feel bad for me. But I will wield it as a responsible power, that I have the ability to talk about it. And maybe that'll help people understand that it's okay, and that you are going to get through it. And so that's why I wanted to share with all of you those personal stories. Again, if you felt uncomfortable or you heard me and as I was stuttering, I stutter a lot when I get nervous. I mean, I'm getting better. This is only my second episode, so give me a give me a shot. I promise I'll get better at this whole talking thing without having to stop every 2 seconds. And so switch gears a little bit and discuss something that Tanner and I discussed in the previous episode. And I thought about it, and some of you may not be privy to the information that we were talking about, such as DC and Camp David. So I want to talk about, for the rest of the episode, I want to talk about something that brings me great pride, and um, and that is my military service. So I was a United States Marine, and I was going to join the army because my cousin was in the army. However, when I went to go and speak to the army recruiter, they were actually closed that day, and the marine recruiter was outside smoking, and he asked me if I wanted to be a real man and serve in a real branch, and I said yes, yes I do, and he said come on in, and it's history ever since. I am a 0311 and an 8152. So those are what's called MOS numbers, or military occupation specialty. And those MOS numbers are what military members use to identify themselves. An 0311 is a rifleman. That is me. An 0331 is a machine gunner. They're big ogres that are very ugly, but they like to shoot big guns, and they're very good at shooting big guns. 0341s are mortarmen. They're the guys that, uh, if you ever seen 13 Hours, those are the guys that drop the bombs. Those things, they were shooting bombs in the air and then dropping down and then all those uh, special forces guys. Yeah, those are mortarmen. So shout out to all the mortarmen. Two boys up. 0351s and 0352s. 0352s are tow missile gunners. Those are big missile systems that are anti-tank. They're anti-bunker. They're really cool, but they're very difficult and very expensive. And O352s are very smart, or at least they're supposed to be. Some of the O352s I have met were, not the smartest a bunch when it came to acting as an adult, but when it came to the weapon systems, boy, they could put together that weapon system pretty good, but boy, could they not drive and sober. They could have fucking not drive sober. Anyways, um, and then O351s, rest in peace. The O351 assaultments, those were replaced by combat engineers. And so those are the different O3 that I am very knowledgeable of. There are other O3s, such as the O317, which is the sniper. I don't know much about that, so I'm not going to speak upon that. Um, and I know I'm forgetting one. I think it's O321. Yes, O321. That's the Reconnaissance. I knew a few of my buddies that from boot camp, and that I went to ITB with. And ITB is Infantry Training Battalion. That's where all baby grunts go to play soldier for 2 months, and they come out thinking they're big boy grunts. And so 0321s are Marine reconnaissance. And again, I'm not really knowledgeable. Only what I hear from my friends that have served in as a Marine recons. And so I don't want to speak about 0321s and 0317s. Maybe I can in the future hopefully get people to come and interview, and I can come and interview them. But other than that, I don't want to speak on them. And then finally, of course, the last ones are 0302, which is the Marine infantry officers. Those are the officers that have the MOS code of 0302. They are infantry officers that, again, just like enlisted, officers also have to have a specialty and a job. So they have an MOS code. Finally, of course, can't forget 0372s. They're critical skills operators or MARSOC operators. But again, those guys are um, highly specialized individuals that are critical skills operators. They're special forces operators. And so those guys I cannot speak about, and nor will I ever speak about because I don't know anything about them. I do know uh, two of my fellow service members that I served with, and one of them that I actually am good friends with. They do hold that MOS code, but that's as far as I know. Um, and then a couple new MOSs that came about are 0365. That's the infantry squad leader. Those MOSs were that MOS actually was just made in the past, I would say, 5 to 8 years. A few of my friends who stayed in after I got out received the MOS code 0365. So you got 0311s, 0341s, 0331s, 0321s. Those are all make up the O3 community. So throughout my podcast, I'm going to use terms such as O3 or grunt or door pusher or gunslinger or lead slinger. But all those terms are when I refer to the infantry as a whole, because that's what I am knowledgeable about. And then you guys are also going to hear me say 8152. That is a what's called a B billet or a secondary MOS. And that secondary MOS is what I did for the first 3 years of my career. And so that's what I wanted to talk to you about. Um, these last, I would say, 30 minutes. I want to speak to you about as much as I can about the program that I was in and just how my military service was in general. Because we kind of touched on it last episode. We were discussing COVID and the restrictions that we went through, but we didn't. I didn't really go into the program or all that. And so I enlisted as a security forces Marine, and as a security forces Marine, there are three avenues that you can do. There are PRP, and I will discuss them after I list them. PRP, Fast Company, and Presidential Security. Now, there are people that I served with and that I went to school with that have gone through all three programs. Hopefully, I can get them on my podcast so that way they can discuss it further. But what I know about these individual programs. So PRP, they guard nukes, right? That's pretty much all I've been told. They guard nukes like nuclear subs, Fast Company, those Marines are the ones that go and retake the embassies that are taken over, or some other type of state-oriented building. They are the ones that go and secure high-value places, I would say. And then finally, presidential security, which is what I did. They go through a pipeline that gets you a security clearance and gets you at one of two stations, Camp David, or you stay in DC as White House Communications, where you travel with the White House and protect assets. And so I did not know really what I was signing. I just knew that I wanted to be an O3 And so my recruiter told me, yeah, security forces are like O3s, but SWAT. And I believe them. Obviously, all recruiters have to lie to you a little bit to get you to sign some paperwork. But I didn't need much. I was already very willing and ready to leave and wanted to just go and be an O3. Um, and obviously, uh, you guys know why. We discussed it earlier. I just wanted to go and fight and die. And so that was the easiest way, was to sign an O3 contract. I was going to originally go as an O3XX, which means an O3 open contract, but I had to wait for like 6 months after I graduated, and I did not want to wait. And so I was screened in boot camp, and I was told that I am not allowed to get married, I am not allowed to have kids, and I cannot get any tattoos for the first like 3 years I am in the military, in the Marine Corps. And I mean, I was pretty bummed out because my girlfriend, who's my wife now, um, I mean, I wanted to get married to her right after high school, and I had all these plans, but I got screened for this presidential security program. I fit the bill, and I went to BSG in Virginia, and BSG is Basic Security Guard School. In reality, this school was just a haze fest for these instructors to build us up and tell us and keep feeding these lies about security forces. I mean, it's not security forces. I'm not saying that it was this awesome, amazing experience, but I'm also not saying that it was this super high speed tactical experience either. BSG was just a schoolhouse for Marines who just went to boot camp and ITB, and then so you're basically still freshly hatched Marines. You guys still have boot camp MREs in your fucking shit, and you still believe that Marines don't lie, cheat, and steal. Like, you're very early in your career, and so anything the instructors tell you, you are going to believe. So for the Marines who were going to Fast Company, they were told that, yeah, you guys are the first ones to go in. Remember Benghazi? Remember Benghazi? Yeah, you guys are the ones that are going to go in if that shit happens again. You know, oh, my PRP boys, nuke boys, man, you guys be guarding nukes. Fuck yeah, you guys gonna be guarding nukes. That's badass. He's like, you guys gonna be the first line of defense. And then it came to presidential, and we're like, hey, what about us? What about us? Nothing. You guys are gonna be mowing fucking grass. We were told that when we get there, we're gonna be cutting lawns and fucking cutting hedges, and being told that uh, they don't know anything about the group or anything about the program, and they just wanted us to know that we were fucking dumb wanting to get screened for that program. And I'm like sitting here, I'm like, fuck, man, this is gonna be my first 3 years. And so I went to DC. Um, and in DC, it's called Marine Barracks, Washington, MBW for short. So when I mention DC, I do mean Washington DC, where the president of the United States lives. I was stationed there at Marine Barracks, Washington. So at Marine Barracks, Washington, there was guard company and there was everybody else. That's what it felt like. You know, we were our own entity. We were on our own. Our main and our sorry, not our main, our only job there was security. We were not participating in any of the parades during the summer. We were not participating in any type of um, ceremonial events. We were strictly there for security. And who we were guarding, that would be the commandant of the Marine Corps and his personal staff or his fellow generals. And so that was what I did in DC for 16 months. I'm very fortunate that I only had to spend 16 months in DC. It's not a lot of time in hindsight. 16 months is a blip on a 5 year enlistment. And so I was in DC or Marine Barracks, Washington for 16 months. In that time, I met some of my best friends. I can already, like, I already laugh about all the stories that I want to say about Marine Barracks, Washington. Um, and I'll tell a story. So it was my first night at Marine Barracks, Washington. We were told that it was time for a drinking party. It was time to make our bones in the company. And so we were grabbed by this very, um, I would say, precarious character. He knows who he is. Uh, People who know him know who he is. But he had this little boot shot, right? And he said, every time I say drink, boot, drink, you and your little boot friends are going to take a shot. And I was like, okay, I can't be a bitch. And mind you, I never really drank. I drank in BSG, yeah, but I mean, I am underage, and it's not like I was drinking the sauce since I was 15, like some of these other Marines. I am fairly new to drinking, but I'm not gonna be a bitch about it. So this boot shot, I think, was like a double shot, and so every time he said drink, boot, drink, me and my friend drank and we were slamming shots. And before you knew it, your boy felt wasted. I mean, I was so fucked up. I couldn't walk. I remember walking to another Marine's room, going in, who he was sitting in his bed, sipping on whiskey. And he said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Can I drink that?" And he said, "What?" And I grabbed his whiskey bottle and I slammed it. I went back to my room. I threw up all over my floor. I pissed all over my wall. I was so drunk and so fucked up. My roommate wasn't there because he had a girlfriend out in town. And so I was so fucked up. I remember he had fish. Okay. He had these fish. In, he had the fish in the room. Okay. And I'll never forget this. And my roommate had these fish and I just threw up. And I remember coming in and out of consciousness. I was time traveling through my own life. I was time traveling using my body. And so I remember I came to, I threw up, I came to, I threw up in his fish water, and then I fell asleep. And I fell asleep on my bed. And when I woke up the next morning, it fucking smelled awful in my room. I went downstairs to the PX. I bought probably about $100 worth of cleaning supplies and I was cleaning my room for hours and hours. And I looked at my roommate's fucking fish and I see my throw up in the water. And I go, God damn it. And so I spent the next 2, maybe 3.5 hours cleaning his fish tank as well. Um, I cleaned it so well he never noticed. And I do pat myself on the back for that. So I covered this scene of the crime and I felt disgusting. I felt awful. And we were told that we had field day. And this is the first time I've ever heard of field day. And so I'm cleaning my room and I get a bang on my door. I hear a bang. I go, get outside, get outside. And I get outside and there's my corporal of the guard. And he's like, what the fuck are you doing? And I'm like, what, corporal? I don't know. And he's like, get the fuck up and come outside and help clean the fucking hallways. And I looked up and down the hallways and people were scrubbing the floors of the hallways and their doors and sweeping. And I was like, oh yes, corporal. And he's like, God, he's like, they get fucking stupider every year. He fucking walked away. He's actually a really cool guy. But um, he didn't know I was cleaning up the scene of the crime, but my squad leader did because my squad leader walked in and he said, dude, what the fuck happened? And this is the first day in guard company. My first impression to all my leaders, my squad leader, my team leader. Oh my God. I was like, well, this should be fun. But my squad leader, he was really, really understanding. And so he told me, he said, listen, he's like, who was it that was giving you this alcohol? Who was it that fucking made you drink all this alcohol? And why did you not stop? And I said, I told him, Corporal, it was my choice that I drank that. I chose to drink because I wanted to get fucked up. And he didn't really believe me, but he left it at that. Because if you were in our company, you knew who the fish were and you knew who to stay away from. Obviously, I didn't know, and the Marines who dropped with me didn't know. And when I say dropped, that's just another term that military members use is when you get done with a schoolhouse or some type of school or some type of academy, the term dropped just means you're getting put into your company or into your squad. So getting dropped into a squad or into a company or platoon. So when I say drop, that's what I mean. Um, and so that was my very first day and night at Guard Company. We had a formation after that. I almost passed out in front of our platoon commander and platoon sergeant. I was sweating. I threw up um, again in the restroom. It was awful. It was awful. And that's a story about Marine Barracks, Washington. And so for the next 16 months, it's just guarding, standing post, which means you go get in uniform, get armed. You have a sidearm, and you're guarding something. That's all we did as guard company. Um, so Marine Barracks Washington is quite famous for summer parades, and those summer parades are where the silent drill platoon forms or performs, and the Marine band performs. The president's own Marine band performs as well. Um, and so, if you want to know a fun fact about the Marine band, the Marine band doesn't actually have Marines in them. There are professional level players of instruments. And if you look up the rank insignia, just type in President's Own Rank Insignia. Instead of cross rifles in between the chevrons, it's actually a harp. And that is a fun little fact about the Marine Band. So there was a lot of debate on whether or not we should respect them or whether or not we should listen to them, but it didn't matter. No one gave a shit about the guards except the guards. Um, it was a clear indication that no one really respected us because they really didn't understand why we were there and why we were needed. But the reason why we were there is to protect those guys, to make sure their cars didn't get broken into in DC, in the streets of DC. Because, fun fact, DC is not that great of an area. It is riddled with crime and muggings. I have gotten my groceries stolen. I've almost gotten in fights when I was stationed there. And so these individuals who would take us for granted, they never saw the importance of our job, because if they really understood the importance of our job, they wouldn't have given us so much shit about every little thing. Um, and so that was my service in Marine Barracks, Washington. I stood post for 16 months, and then I finally cleared. And when I mean clear, my security clearance that I had, um, which was a Yankee White security clearance. And if you type in again, you could just look that up. A Yankee White clearance isn't a much separate background investigation as it is an administrative nickname for a security clearance. So it's just a fancy way of saying that you are allowed within a 20-foot radius of the President of the United States, which is pretty cool. But that security clearance came with a lot of secondary baggage, such as staying 16 months at Marine Barracks, Washington. And as an O3, it's humiliating because you're told by every level of chain of command who served in combat, who served overseas, that you guys don't know what this is. You guys fucking have it all good and all the best because this program is cushy. You guys want to fucking survive in the fleet. And so that was introduced very early. And so I cleared and I went to Camp David, Naval Support Facility, Camp David, trying to make sure I don't oversell the bad parts, but I also don't undersell them. It was a time where I learned what type of leaders exist, good leaders and bad leaders. I also learned a lot about myself and who I was and whether or not I was fit to be a leader. I learned a lot at Camp David. I went through a lot at Camp David. So Camp David was a time. to say the least. Um, and then after Camp David, I was there 2 years, and I'll get into that. That's like going to be its own separate episode with a few guests. I hope I could get because Camp David, there's just too many stories that I have and too many memories to share in just one episode. And so the next and final stop was Camp Lejeune 2-8. Um, you heard me in the last episode, I was cut orders. And what that means is when a Marine spends enough time at a certain duty station, he gets orders and he gets told to move. And I was told to move to Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. And I had 30 days PCS leave, which permanent change of station. And that's where I got to marry my wife. I married my wife 2018, and we've been married for 4 years now. And so that was the start of my Victor 2-8 career. Uh, I wish it, I don't wish anything actually. What I went through is what I went through. And so I get to 2-8 and I finally get to be an infantryman. I finally get to do what I wanted to be doing the entire time I was in. All the times I was told, you're going to get to the fleet and you're going to understand what it means to be a Marine infantryman. Constantly being told by my leaders that the fleet is the goal. The fleet is the end of this road, not the program, the fleet. And I got to the fleet, and I don't know, it was most likely just a generational thing, or most likely when my leaders were in, they had to focus on war and combat, but the fleet was nothing. It was poorly ran. There were Marines constantly getting in trouble, constantly getting in DUI or getting DUIs or getting in fights, going to jail, going to the brig. And these Marines, we were going on training ops every weekend for this deployment that we were going on. And so I got there at the very beginning of what's called a pre-deployment work up, and that means you work up to the deployment. You do specific training tasks. You have checks that have to be marked, and you have certain wickets that you have to hit within this certain time period. And so I get there, and the battalion is already rolling into this, and we're going on field ops, we're hiking, and I love it. I love the infantry life. It's the best life ever. To be just a fucking degenerate and to be a raccoon, I fucking love it. When the world goes to shit and I have to live on the streets, I'm going to be right at home because misery is the best. You don't have to worry about anything when you're in the field except just doing your job and existing. Okay, you could be dirty, you could be disgusting, a savage. That's what I wanted to be my entire enlistment. And I finally got it at Camp Lejeune. And so some of that personal anger and some of that personal drive was resonating really strongly. And as well as my inferiority complex against these other NCOs and these other homegrown Marines who saw me as an outsider already, right? I'm coming from security forces, and all these Marines are telling me, hey, we had security forces NCOs, they sucked. A bunch of them were pussies, they weren't hard asses. And I was like, man, I got to step it up. I got to be a fucking dog right now. I have to be who I know I could be. And so I'm going to be a fucking, I made it clear I'm going to be a savage. I'm going to be a fucking great infantryman. I'm going to fucking study my knowledge. I'm going to not be a turd from security forces. And I was really determined to do that. And maybe I was overly determined because when I got my first billet as a team leader, I was so excited to lead Marines. I was so excited to prove to those that I can do this and that I can be a small unit leader. And so I got my first team, and I wanted to train them the way I was trained: physical fitness, being yelled at, being bold, made sure don't be a turd, don't be a shithead, things that I thought were good leadership qualities. And that was very wrong of me. The That's probably what got me in the most trouble, was thinking that I had to yell all the time. And that's not true. a good leader knows when to use his voice and yell, but a great leader knows when it's time to sit down and talk to your Marines and understand what's going on. And so during this workup, we went to Yuma, Arizona, and we went to 29 Palms, California, and that's where we got to really understand. My staff sergeants right before that 2 months, 3 months training, he said to our platoon, he said, when we come back, we're going to be a tight oiled machine. We're going to really find out who we are, and you guys are going to really find out what we are capable of on this next training op. And we were all very excited. We were, 4 or 5 months away from deployment. We were just getting to know really a lot of each other, and so we were excited. And the first stop was 29 Palms, but my team and our squad had weak bodies. And when I say weak bodies, I don't mean like frail individuals. I mean people who were weak minded and were not built to be in the infantry. Um, and well, we left, and we did training. Um, and I don't want to one side this story, because I was at fault. I was quite mean, and I did yell at my team all the time, and I would punish them with physical fitness, but I would always do the physical fitness with them. I would never make them do it while I just stood by them. I was always pushing myself just as much as I was pushing them. However, I would always reach for that instead of trying to sit them down and understand what they're lacking and why they're lacking. And so that is a mistake on my part, is that I was too hemmed up in the fact that I had to be this certain type of leader. And so I was known in the platoon and in the company of kind of being an asshole team leader and kind of be, I remember my platoon commander told me, he's like, you're this force, this menace in our platoon. And he said, I love it. He said, I love what you do. I love your energy. And I was told by my staff sergeant as well. And I was like, oh, okay. I was like, maybe I'm not doing anything wrong. Maybe I am just pushing through and I am just fucking doing what I'm supposed to be doing, with being a fucking dog. Right. And so I was like, these Marines will get it. And so from 29 Palms, we go to Yuma, Arizona. And at Yuma, Arizona is where we did a lot of training with helicopters. That was the main thing that we did. But I actually went through MAI course, or martial arts instructors course. And so I was separated from my platoon from the start of, from the second week that we were there in Yuma, all the way up until the second to last week we were there in Yuma. Um, and we were, sorry, no. The second week we were there, I was put into martial arts instructor school, and I was there, I believe, for 6 weeks. And then I was out and back into my company for one last training op before the whole training thing was done. Um, and that's when a Marine called hazing while we were at Yuma. If you're a military member, hazing is a big no-no. If you don't know what hazing is, it's making people do something that it can be demeaning or derogatory or strenuous or humiliate. Fuck me, I cannot fucking talk. If you don't know what hazing is making someone do something that is either derogatory, demeaning, or meant to be um, humiliating in some way. And so at Yuma, something changed, and that's an understatement, I would say. One of the members of our squad called hazing, and if you don't know what hazing is, it is when you make an individual or individuals do something that is demeaning or humiliating, and it's not okay in the military. There's a zero tolerance for hazing in the military, or so they say, but it happens all the time. Obviously, you guys know the story I just told you about getting force-fed alcohol. That's a type of hazing, but I am not defending hazing. And so I was so hazing was called on my squad leader and the three team leaders. me being one of them. And we were separated. And from that separation, we were told that we were under investigation. And right now, we don't know what's going to happen. And it just really spiraled into something that changed how I viewed not only the military, but how I viewed trusting people and how I was going to be able to push forward and get through my life. Um, but with that, if you thank you, thank you for listening to this podcast. Um, I want to thank you for listening to this podcast, and please leave a comment if you enjoyed it. On some platforms, they do let you leave comments on the ratings, not on Spotify. If you liked it, please rate me 5 stars. If you didn't like it, rate me 5 stars. Lie to yourself just for a little bit. What's another lie about 1,000 that we tell a day? Um, if you are in so please join my Facebook group. It's at the bottom of the description. Follow me on Instagram. Message me if you have any questions or you need someone to talk to. I'm always open. And as always, thank you and have a great day.